When you think of the word disaster, what comes to mind? Probably chaos, right? Sirens, wreckage, the immediate aftermath. But what if I told you the most important part of managing a disaster happens long before any of that? Yeah, that's the real story here, and it's probably not what you think.
So let's just jump right in. How big of a problem are we actually talking about here? Well, the thing is, these events aren't just happening, they're happening more often, and they're hitting a lot harder than they used to.
Okay, check out this number, 119. Any ideas? Take a guess? This is the number of disasters in the U.S. just in the 2010s that each caused over $1 billion in damage. Insane, right?
And this chart really drives that home. Just look at this. Back in the 80s, we saw 29 of these billion-dollar events. Flash forward to the 2010s, and that number jumps to 119. It more than quadrupled. And listen, this isn't just a U.S. thing. This is a global trend.
And it's not just about the money, which is staggering enough. It's the sheer frequency. The number of disasters per year shot up 65% in just a handful of years. That relentless pace, well, that's exactly why we need to get a handle on disaster management.
Okay, so this brings up a really interesting question. What actually makes something a disaster? Think about it. If a massive hurricane swirls around in the middle of the empty ocean, is that a disaster? The answer is probably not what you think.
All right, so according to the United Nations, the key isn't just the event itself. It's when a community's ability to cope is completely overwhelmed. That last part is the whole ballgame. It's about being pushed past your breaking point.
And what's so cool is how experts boil this all down into one simple but incredibly powerful formula. Get this, a hazard plus vulnerability equals a disaster. This one little equation, it changes absolutely everything about how we should look at these events.
And this slide just illustrates that perfectly. Imagine a massive earthquake ripping through an uninhabited desert. Geologically, it's a huge deal, right? But out there, it's just a hazard. Now, take that exact same earthquake, same magnitude, and drop it right under a crowded city. Bam! That hazard just met a vulnerable population. And now you've got a catastrophe. The hazard didn't change at all. The vulnerability. Okay, so if that's the equation, how do you solve for less disaster? Well, you can't stop the hazard, but you can reduce the vulnerability. And you don't do that by waiting for the storm to hit. Experts use this proactive framework, and it's called the disaster management cycle.
Now, this cycle has 4 main phases: mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. But here's the real kicker, the thing most of us totally miss. The 2 most important phases, the ones that do the most good, happen long before a disaster ever even makes the news.
Yeah, people mix these two up all the time, but the difference is absolutely crucial. Mitigation is all about trying to stop the disaster from happening in the first place, or at least lessening its punch. Think of it like building a fortress. Preparedness, on the other hand, is like, okay, the fortress might get breached, so what's our game plan? It's about being ready to act.
So, what does mitigation actually look like? Well, we're talking big, long-term structural stuff. A perfect case study is Hurricane Andrew back in 1992. It absolutely leveled parts of Florida. And in response, they completely rewrote their building codes to be way stronger. That is mitigation. And those changes are literally saving lives and homes today.
Preparedness, then, is all about the action plan. It's the stuff you do to get ready. Making evacuation plans, stockpiling water and supplies, setting up warning sirens. Honestly, the fire drills you did in school, that's preparedness in a nutshell. It's training, so when that alarm goes off, you don't panic, you know exactly what to do.
All right, so you've done the work beforehand. You've built the stronger walls, you've practiced the drills, but what happens when the disaster strikes anyway? Well, that's when we move into the next 2 phases of the cycle, response and recovery.
Response is what you see on the news. It's the emergency phase, the all-hands-on-deck moment. We're talking search and rescue teams, setting up emergency shelters, providing immediate medical care. It's all about saving lives and minimizing the immediate harm right after the event. And the stakes here are just incredibly high. Now, this chart shows something that might actually surprise you. It breaks down disaster-related deaths over a 10-year period. We tend to think of sudden, violent events like earthquakes or storms, right? But look at the biggest slice of the pie. Slow burn disasters like drought and famine. They're often the deadliest of all.
So once the immediate chaos subsides, the next phase, recovery, begins. And this is the long, hard slog back to some kind of normal. But the thing is, normal can be a destination that's years or even decades down the road.
And this timeline really shows you what that long road looks like. Recovery is a marathon, not a sprint. In the first few weeks, it's about the basics:
power, water, then for months it's clearing mountains of debris. But rebuilding roads, bridges, entire neighborhoods, that takes years. I mean, just think about New Orleans. It's still, to this day, recovering from Hurricane Katrina, and that was way back in 2005.
Okay, so we've got these 4 phases, but why is it called a cycle? I mean, shouldn't it just be a straight line? Well, no, and this is where the real genius of this whole model comes into play. This is the real payoff.
It all boils down to this one absolutely mind-blowing statistic. For every single dollar you spend on mitigation, that's the proactive stuff, remember, you save, on average, $6 in post-disaster costs. That's a 600% return on investment, an investment that saves money, yes, but more importantly, it saves lives and communities.
And that's why it's a cycle. Because the lessons you learn during the recovery from one disaster get fed right back into the mitigation and preparedness for the next one. You learn what broke, what held up, what worked. The goal isn't just to rebuild what was there, it's to build back better, to create a community that's stronger and more resilient than it was before. It's a constant loop of getting smarter. So this really leaves us with one final, and I think pretty critical question to ask ourselves. Think about your own town, your own community. Is it actively preparing for the future, or is it just waiting to recover from the past? The answer to that question could literally make all the difference in the world.